Miranda, this is Katie. Do you know her? Miranda's one of our bar teachers, and she is in on the conversation today. She's a 2 thumbs up for that. Oh, was it cold? Would you like to put a blanket over it? Put a blanket over it. Everyone will need a block. Let's put a block. Hello there, replay folks. We are setting up for a little movement experience. The topic today is practices to support mental well-being, really, but balancing anxiety and lifting depression. So when I say practices for anxiety and depression, I didn't intend that we would come and you would get practices that would make you anxious and depressed. Yesterday when I was working on it, I was put the title on the slide. I was like, that's a little misleading. Plenty of opportunities out in the world to get anxious and depressed. Today we're just going to alleviate and balance out some of those things. So we're going to start with these, this little movement set. And we're going to begin with a child's pose. And if you would, please put your forehead on the block. So a block under the forehead, arranged so that your little beak is not smushed. So no smushing of the beak. It's nice. That was just like a little meditation bell. Thanks for turning it off, but it actually was rather timely. Like I thought, oh, Leah's got to be done with those curtains by now. And then we got a little ding. And notice the route of your breath. Let the air come in through the nose and out through the nose. And in between the coming in and the going out, feel for where the breath touches. Notice if it travels a little more on the right and a little more on the left. And it's okay, you know, if you think to yourself or notice that there's nothing to notice, that maybe the breath doesn't go anywhere. That's all right. There's space for that. There's okayness around that. As a matter of fact, if that's what's true for you, then really welcome that into your experience in this moment. Here I am breathing in, breathing out. The air isn't going too many places. And let it get easier. So if there's anything challenging about it, if you feel like there's weight onto your forearms, move the elbows wider, let the shoulders relax, let it be easier. If you feel like there's a heaviness to the belly, let's pulling tension into the back, bring the knees closer and provide support underneath you. And then all together, let's take a really generous breath in. And as you breathe out, see if you can just drop your heart, just relax the heart down towards the ground a little bit. There's the capacity to just let go, to hold a bit less, to relax a little more. So all together. And exhale. We're really here for inquiry. And the inquiry can be organized around the polarity, the spectrum of experience. Where do I feel tense? Where do I feel relaxed? Where is there space? Where is there compression? Where is it hot? Where is it cold? Who am I? Who am I not? Maybe anywhere along that continuum. Just here for an experience of noticing. Very good. Let's come up to all fours. Bring the block with you. So up to all fours, and then grab the block, cross your ankles, pull your bum back behind your feet and sit on the block. Just slide the block back behind you. And place your bum right there. Bring your hands into your lap and sit your spine upright. And now let the sit bones orient into the block just like your forehead did. Good, and whether you arrange the legs this way or that way is just fine. And notice the material underneath the skin of the face. Scan for places that might be tight or places that might feel warm and free. Places that are still holding perhaps the imprint of the block or the imprint of the stress of driving here, or the imprint of the laughter we shared before class started. It's like notice the sensations of your face. And we're just going to use the index finger like the pointer finger, and we're going to use the pad of that finger. So bring the pad of your index finger to the little divot of your chin. So not like the tip point of your chin, but roll up underneath the lower lip where the chin rests. And then add a couple little presses there. So just press gently and release. And press gently and release. And if there's anything that wants to happen in response to that, let it. If there's an adjustment in your jaw or in your neck that wants to happen, go ahead and let that happen. So what I mean is like cooperate with that little pressing and releasing. And do it one more time, gentle press. And release. And then move the finger up to under the nose above the upper lip and the little divot that's there. Just press and release there. And you can see that we're doing it about 5 to 7 times. And you don't have to go fast and you don't have to go slow. And be gentle and be very discerning. Allow yourself to find something subtle about it. And now we'll use 2 fingers and we'll be on the outer rim of the nostrils. So at the base of the nostrils to the left and to the right. 1 finger to each side. That's it. Just a gentle press and release. And try to use the pad of the finger rather than the tip so that you get a broader area. And these are pressure points the fascia will begin to unravel, release. Some of the masking might melt off your face. If your rhythm feels a little quick and you're able to just take a deep breath and slow it down, then try that. Move the fingers up the sides of the nose. There's the bony portion of the nose where your sunglasses sit. Go to the bottom of that bone. You can even slide up higher to the bridge and then slide down to the sides. And right where the bone ends on either side of your nose, just press and release. And again, if there's any slight adjustment to your posture that wants to happen as you do this, then let it. When I look at you, it might look like you're not even moving because you're pressing just so gently. Move the fingers up to the bridge of the nose, to the left and to the right of where The sunglasses will sit pretty close to the corner of the eye, but on the nose portion there. And then let's move to the base of the eyebrow. And now my hands have to adjust. My elbows went out a little bit. I'm using my hands at a little bit of a different angle. Maybe you discovered that too. And as you press and release, travel from the base of the eyebrow along the ridge, the bony ridge, where the forehead and the eye kind of come together, travel all the way out, press and release, little by little. And let's meet at the temples. When you get to the temple, there's quite a divot there. Move up to the top rim of the temple. So you're on the sides of the forehead, where the temple is next to the eyes, and then slide up to the upper ridge where the bone creates a ridge. Press and release there. Now, just to get a little bit weird before we go on, slide your fingers inside your ears and find the spot right at the bottom of your ear canal. And the finger's probably a little big to go in the ear canal, and that's good because we really don't want it to. But if you could, loop your finger right at the base of the ear canal. And you can press and release, or you might feel like a little soft massage there. There's one more stop. So as you take your finger along the ear and scoop down and up and follow the folds of your ear up until there's a little stopping point right tucked in the cave of the folds of your ear. So you're not all the way up at the top of the ear itself, but kind of in the middle-ish of the ear. So that little fold might not get a lot of fresh air, just massage into that spot right there. Nice, and now free the hands and inhale, reach up. And bring the palms together and exhale, the hands to prayer at your heart. Allow yourself one more moment to notice the face. Very nice, let's come to all fours. And from this all fours position, we're going to start with barrel rolls. And so when you come here, you know, cat-cow is the typical, and we could, but today a little bit different. Circle the belly around in circles. So barrel roll your abdomen around in circles, and you can go clockwise or counterclockwise, not as important. We'll switch directions in a moment. And as you're moving, push your hands down into the ground and notice where you're located. You might even look with your eyes and see your hands right here on your yoga mat, and my hands are right here on the floor. And you can stretch your fingers away from each other and press down into the knuckles of the hands and feel how the hands lock into the floor. And you've got this one spot secure right here. Go in the opposite direction. And as you continue moving in the opposite direction, feel for your knees, your shins, the tops of your feet. I mean, it's possible to push down into your knees a little bit deeper, push down into the shins, into the tops of the feet. There's a portion of the barrel roll that lets you find a little bit more ground underneath your knees. You can bring the weight back a little bit, and then you have more weight. And you might feel as you move that there's a shifting of the weight left and right. So we're just really noticing where we are and where the ground is and what's underneath us. Good. Drop the belly, lift the heart, lift the chin. And then hold the belly down, but drop the chin down. So this is like cow with a drooping head, right? Squeeze all the air out, breathe out. And then as you breathe in, lift the belly up and lift the chin up. So this is like a cat with the chin lifted. Good. Exhale, belly down, chin down. Inhale, belly up, chin up. It might feel really weird because it's a completely different pattern than we're used to. Exhale, belly down, chin down. We're flossing the nerves through the neck in a very different manner. Inhale, belly up, chin up. So let's do 3 more. Exhale, belly down, chin down. Inhale, belly up, chin up. And 2 more on your own. Nicely done. Curl under the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. And see if you can bring a deep breath in, and then on your exhale, exhale forever. Just exhale forever and ever. Press all the air out and then exhale some more. And inhale. And the longest exhale. Surprise yourself. The exhale will never end. Go out, go out, go out, go out, go out. Good. Let's do 1 more. Inhale. And long exhale. Nicely done. Bring the feet between the hands. Take the hands up to the thighs. Bend the knees slightly. Pull the heart forward. And then take the hands to the back where the hips are. So if you're putting your hands into your back pockets, bend your knees a little bit more, push down, and come on up. Come on up to stand, reach the hands up to the sky, and then palms touching, bring the hands down to the heart. And close your eyes, and push down into the 3 corners of the feet. So feel first for the right foot. Push into the heel pad, the big toe mound, the little toe mound, who's sneaky. And then push into the left foot, the heel pad, the big toe mound, the little toe mound. And if you feel like you can't quite communicate that far away down there on the ground, that's okay. That can be the way it is. Lift your toes up a little bit off the ground. Feel for the right foot. Feel for the 3 places. Notice what really readily meets the ground and what's really kind of resisting connecting to the ground. And just get to know that. Good. Don't worry about changing it. Just notice it. And then put your attention to the left foot. Feel the left foot meeting the ground. And notice where you have more cooperation, less cooperation. Good. Can we feel both feet at the same time? As you feel the feet meet the ground, see if you can lift your arches slightly. Good. Let the energy come up the legs and lift the base of the body, lift the pelvic wall up, or the pelvic floor up slightly. And then as you come up your spine, lift your midsection up slightly, like you want longer waistline. And then come on up and lift the palate at the back of your throat, lift that up slightly. Good. Take a deep breath in. Exhale forever. Good. Inhale, reach 2 hands up. Exhale, bend the knees slightly, hinge at the hips, and come all the way down. Put your hands on the ground, fingertips at least. Bend the left knee. Bring your left heel towards your left sit bone. Stretch your left leg back. Push into the right foot. Feel for the heel pad of the right foot, the big toe mound, the little toe side of the right foot. Feel the right foot arch lifting up. And then bend the right knee, push back into the left heel and drop the left foot down. Drop the left knee, walk the hands up on top of the right knee, take the hands to the sky, set your gaze. Feel for your face and see if you can return to that very soft face that you found after our pressure point work. Feel for the right foot and see if it still has contact with the earth right where you had it placed when you were standing in mountain pose. Bring a big breath all the way up to the fingertips. And exhale, hands down and step back, down face dog. And we still have us. Good. We do. Breathe in. Longest breath ever, breathe out. Good. Lower your knees down. Walk your hands forward. Stretch the arms way out forward. Yes, Miranda's there. Puppy dog pose. Use your exhale to really surrender your heart down to the ground. So even if you need to use a sigh, use the breath to help you. Let the heart hang like in a hammock, the way you would hang in a hammock if you just got to St. Martin's and had a little fruity drink with an umbrella. And you just hang yourself in the hammock, heavy and relaxed, and so at ease. Let your heart hang just like that. Nicely done. Slide your hands back so that they are under the armpits. Inhale, cow pose, drop the belly to the chin. And exhale, down face dog. Now splay the fingers and feel for the hands. And let the hands support you. Tiptoe the feet closer and closer to the hands. Let the shoulders come over the hands. Push the hands into the ground. Tiptoe as slowly as you can. When it's time, bend your knees and step your feet to meet your hands. Inhale, flat back, hands on the thighs. Exhale, hands to the back pockets, push down. Bend the knees. Inhale, stand, rise. And exhale, the hands to the heart. Close your eyes, lift your toes, feel for your feet. You know the 6 spots, 3 on the right, 3 on the left. Lift the arches up. Pull that energy up the inner thigh lines of your legs. The energy meets the base of your pelvic bowl. Lift at the base of the pelvic bowl. Lift through the waistline, lift through the soft palates. Inhale, reach the hands up. And exhale, dive down, fold down. Grip the floor with your finger pads or anchor the hands flat, but lean into the left foot, bend the right knee. Keep the right leg bent, push down into the left foot. Extend the right leg behind you. So push down into the left foot, lift the left arch, push back into the right foot. Feel for the heel pad, the ball of the right foot, the baby toe side of the ball of the right foot. Keep pushing down left, pushing down right. Take a deep breath, inhale. Exhale, bend your left knee slowly, find the ground gently. Drop the right knee down. Walk the hands up on top of your left knee, crane pose. So this is full embodiment movement, completely generated and oriented from inside your skin. And so in this asana, can you feel the bones that are inside your skin, the muscles that are inside your skin? Perhaps you have such an acute conversation with yourself that you can feel the blood pumping inside your skin or the lymphatic fluids flushing. Reach up with the armpits and release a little more lymphatic fluid from that very rich area of your body, all the glandular area activity there. Inhale, lift up. Push into the ground to feel that foundation underneath your process. And then hands down and step back, down face dog. Yes? Yeah. That's where we are. Each and every breath has a route that it travels into your body and back out of your body. So perhaps in the first child's pose, there wasn't much tangible evidence of that, but maybe in this down dog, we can get a bit more, a little bit deeper into the conversation. Inhale, knees down, walk the hands forward, stretch the arms out. Lower the heart, puppy dog. Nice. Slide the right hand and the left hand back under the armpits. Push yourself up to all fours, cow shape. And exhale, downward facing dog. We're going to press the weight into the hands. The hands meet the earth and there's a bind there. You can grip with your finger pads and then press the knuckles of the palms of your hands down. Lift your heels up, tiptoe your feet. Let the weight come forward. Keep the eyes forward. Tiptoe a little closer until it's time for you to bend the knees and simply arrive. Push the feet down, relax the toes up. Inhale, flat the back. There'll be arches pulling up as you lengthen. Exhale, hands to the back pockets, bend the knees. Inhale, push down, stand up, rise. Exhale, hands to your heart. Hands to your hips. Look over your left shoulder. Step your left foot wide. Bend the right knee, warrior two. So we'll take in this asana, the hands behind the head, and use the thumbs to link underneath at the base of the skull. So use your thumbs to grab the little bony ridge under your skull and hook your thumbs there. Now, when the finger went to the front of the chin, perhaps you could feel the chin pulling back into the throat slightly. So see if you can action back and then use your thumbs to lift up on the back of the neck. See if you can find that space in the back of the neck. Right there. Yeah, you will want to look to the side wall so that the neck is well aligned. Roll into the knife edge of your left foot, lift the arch of your left foot. Feel for the three corners of the right foot. Take a deep inhale breath, and then as you breathe out, release the arms out and let warrior two be easy. Eyes to the front. Nicely done. Feel for the feet. It's going to originate from the feet. Push into the feet. Inhale, hands to the sky, straight right leg. Horse pose. So from horse pose here, we're just going to breathe. Inhale, sweep the arms forward. Exhale, drape the hands down. We're working toward a very long exhale. So inhale up. And then twice as long to go down. Exhale, 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 exhale. Good. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sink, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 6, 6, 7, 8. Good. Inhale, hands up, straight legs, and then to the hips. Point your left toes to the back, angle the right foot. It's warrior two to the back of the mat. Hands behind the head, readjust the neck again. And so we're feeling for the neck to come up, and then a little bit of the bones of the skull to press back. It's as if you're pulling up. And then you're pressing back so that your skull can sit on the thumbs. Do you feel it, Kate? Yeah. Take a deep inhale breath and then exhale the arms out, eyes back. Bones, muscles, blood, the lymph, and the nerve endings that travel through the fascial material. That's why when you press the feet deeper, lift the arches up, lift at the base of the body, side waist, the palate, fascial material pulls and tugs and liberates your nerve endings, and you feel something. Inhale, stand up, come back to center again. Hands to the hips this time. Point the toes in and the heels out. Take inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now hands through heart and all the way down. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. You're welcome to take your hands on the floor to the sides of the ankles, but please release tension down your spinal line. The longer exhale, the longer exhale. What do I need to hold on to, become? What can I let go of, release, be free from? Both are important. It's important that we know who we are. It's important that we know who we're not. It's important that we breathe in. It's important that we breathe out. It's important that we're warm. It's important that we're cool. It's important that we're strong. It's important that we're flexible. Today, we're just talking about that continuum. Put a little bend in the knees, hands to the ground, walk to the front of your mat, frame your right foot, right knee bent. Drop your back knee down, and then come to all fours. Left or right knee to meet the left. Good. And cross your ankles, glide your butt back so that you're seated. Extend your left leg out in front of you. Lift the right foot up and over to the outer left thigh. You take the right hand next to your hips, left hand up overhead. Arc. Nope, left hand next to your hips, right hand overhead. Pull up, pull up, pull up. And then anchor your right elbow to your right knee and rotate. Everything feels a little no, it is not. I did have it right the first time. Right hand next to your hip, left hand up. So everything feels a little twilight zone for me today. Anchor your left elbow to your outer right knee and now twist, and we've got the rotation. And feel for the sit bones at the bottom. Lift up so that you can push into the sit bones. The feet aren't going to be as helpful here. The sit bones are anchoring down. And you can grow and stretch up from the sit bones, shoulders low, chin to the right shoulder. What would happen if you breathed a little bit deeper? And then a little bit more to empty. Unravel the face, even when you're twisted up. Nice. Back to center. Take the right peace fingers around the right big toes. Left hand behind you. Take the right foot forward. Pull back with your peace fingers. Camel twist to the left. Gentle, slow, 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 so slow. Bring the right foot down, so slow. Is the right leg longer than the left? Happen. Bend your left knee, cross over. Left hand, right hand up. Not trusting myself now, right? Then right elbow hook into the twist. So working embodiments, awareness, bandhas, breath, all of these elements become more interesting in the asana itself. Feel perhaps in your own experience, I would hope anyway, that there's been an impact to the nervous system. Time you can tell me Raise your left hand up. As you untwist, take the left peace fingers to the left big toes, right hand behind you. Straighten the leg, pull back with the arms so you can lift tall with the sternum. And then manage your experience very mindfully to bring your left foot down, down, down to the ground to meet the right. Micro transition, slow. It is still a little bit longer. Good. Bend the knees so that the flats of the feet come together. Sit up tall and then bring yourself forward to your degree. This Konasana. The block is right there. You're welcome to put it underneath your forehead. When the block is under the forehead, it's applying pressure to the pressure point that relieves the anxiety in the vagal nerve, the activity in the vagal nerves, help that balance. So it can be a very nice tool, as well as just the fact that we're folding forward. I've been contemplating that question, who am I? Who am I not? Someone recently said to me, someone whom I respect, that very, very few people live their life authentically, very few. And she wasn't telling me that I was living authentically. She was noticing we were talking about ways in which I was struggling to meet my own expectations of myself, definition of who I am. It was out of alignment with how I really felt and what was really going on. And so when we start to ask who I am, then we get ourselves activated and engaged in becoming. But when we ask ourselves, who am I not? We become curious about what parts of ourselves or what part of our mask of self we can let go of, like what expectations, the definitions. And they might be limiting, or they might just be out of alignment. We start to ask ourselves, who am I not? You might feel the face start to unravel. You might feel some flow coming back. Some of the posturing, the propping, shedding out. You have to contemplate and see how it works for you. Okay, bring yourself up to seated. Keep the legs out and give them a little bit of a wiggle. You're welcome to massage the muscles down your legs, thighs, the outer thighs, the adductors, the inner thighs, down to the calves, the inner calves, the outer calves, the lumpy calves underneath you. You can reach all the way down to the feet, perhaps. Toes a little twist, the arches a press. Is that a healthy snack cup of paw? Oh, everybody wants to be you. Okay, we're going to sit cross-legged with the hands on the knees. And in this case, we're going to bring the hands palms down, just resting on the knees. If you're able to curl the tongue, go ahead and curl the tongue. If you're not, just make a straw with your lips. But let's breathe in through the satali or straw tongue, straw mouth. And let's breathe out through the nose. And see if you can feel for a particular length of inhale. might be a 4 count, it might be a 5 count, it might be a 6 count. You have to just count to your own breath. And then on your exhale, see if you can make that exhale the length of the inhale plus 1. So if you have a 4 count inhale, then exhale to 5. Let the breath come in the straw and let it go out the nose. And we'll begin just with the exhale being just 1 beat longer than the inhale. And if you would, add 1 more to your exhale. So if you're breathing in through the straw to 4, breathe out through the nose to 6. And of course, if you feel any tension or pressure breathing back in, then you'll know that you can just bump down a little bit. That's part of appreciating who you are and who you're not. There's no need to fake your breath. Working easily, add 1 more beat out. So we're coming in 4, exhale on 7. And then there's just about 1 minute left. So in this last minute, if you'd like, add 1 more beat. So inhale 4 and out 8. Just gently just release the straw. Allow your body to breathe a couple breaths in and out through your nose naturally as it's inclined to do. Bring your hands together at your heart. Prayer, palm into palm, fingers aligned. Face the pelvic bowl, lift to the mid-waist, into the soft palm. Thumb up to your third eye. Namaste and welcome. Any noticing while I get oriented for? It's so down-regulating here. There's no one who wants to talk. A little bit of intelligent feedback about that so that we can anchor a little bit of that. What stood out to you?
I felt like it was more of a full body experience than just a practice. It was hands on the body, different parts of the body that I don't usually touch myself. Different ways to utilize the breath, and then super slow movements to get you into not just with the bone structure movement, but like the muscles and the skin, like everything was involved.
Yeah. So I would say that that's a really potent example. My share today comes from the trauma training that I've done, and also Bo Forbes. And she's a psychotherapist that uses yoga in her practices, and she has quite a great online course offering. So it's nothing that anyone else couldn't access. And if you'd like just the book, it's right here. So I wanted to stay not necessarily, I didn't want to go into therapeutic space, but I wanted to stay pretty practical. Like, what would you take and actually do in a class, like the class you're teaching tomorrow, that might be called hot power yoga or something, right? So this was a really powerful, potent example, because I wanted to get all the strategies in. And I think Kaylee did a really great job of like listing it out, right? The breath had a particular way. Bandhas are really important to her work because they bring a lot of energy lift. We worked with some of the fascial and release pressure points. We worked with, I always said breath already, and we worked with a lot of embodied language, right? To bring you into all aspects of your body. So we'll go over, you know, those strategies today, but you could just jot down a couple ideas from that, and any one of those things could be added into your class without too much deviance, right? Because what we want is like a toolbox, and you're never going to dump out the tools and let me use all of my tools to fix this, right? But when you're here, you want to gather more than one tool. Like, you'll be like, Tracy, thanks for one tip the whole afternoon, you know. And I'll often say, if you get one thing out of it, it's actually a good day, and that would be true. But, you know, it'd be cool to go home with like a little list. And then all you really need to do is incorporate one little thing. Because one thing that happens is you develop the skill as a teacher, and you're able to integrate some of these ideas more naturally into your teaching. Oh, wait a minute, I didn't do screen share first. So the nice people on record can't see the screen. I have to go back. Okay. This. All right. So screen share. Now we're going to be in business. Yeah, because as you develop, you know, you do one unusual thing or one new thing for one or two classes this week, and then the next week you'll be doing it and won't even be thinking about it, right? You'll just have the skill. So what we want to do is come to an understanding of what's going to help people, because first and foremost, this is the practice of yoga. We're talking about yoga, and we have to stay in our lane, right? We're not therapists. I can't claim to like treat anxiety and depression. Anxiety and depression is a very serious mental health issue. It requires professional care, more than me, and more than a yoga practice, okay? But we also, in this current scene that we're living in, have an incredible amount of low-grade depressive and anxious energy. And so that's become epidemic at this low-grade level, and people are coming to yoga for it. And likely you're here because you found that yoga has helped you with a little sluggishness of depression, or a little hyper buzz of anxiety in the low grade kind, right? So let me just like we'll keep context today over what we're talking about. Bo also mentions seasonal affect disorder as one kind of flavor of depression that happens. So you can think of it that way. In wintertime, when people might be feeling a little blasé, you know, can I bring in some of these ideas of what can excite the energy? And really it becomes like being a chef or an artist and knowing what to blend and what to offer. Like when you put oregano in something, it's going to taste completely different than if you put cumin in something, right? So when you go to your classes, it's like if I've got a class of people who are all wired, you know, what's going to help them downregulate a little bit versus when I come into the class and everybody's laying around like they could barely drag themselves there today. What's going to upregulate a little bit. So we're going to talk about the nervous system. We're going to talk about the whole body systems, how they interact. But basically, was there anything in this practice that upregulated you? That lifted the energy, that made you say like, whoa, wow? Yep.
200 reminder.
Yep. Yep, the bandhas from the floor up. So I cued today for the bandhas, for the feet, the pelvic floor, the mid waist, Udyan, which is like a lift through the midsection to lift the energy up through the diaphragmatic shield. And then I cued soft palate up, which helps you lift up through Jalandhar, right? And so we brought that energy up really intentionally. Also moving that slow. Do you remember when you had one foot pushed into the ground and the other leg back behind you? Would you call that an upregulating or a downregulating? Like, yeah, that's a more of an upregulating thing. That would definitely bring it. What was downregulating about it? Longer exhalations. The Satali breath was cooling. That's going to be downregulating. The face pressure points are more downregulating.
Forward, forward, forward.
We did forward folds,
Yeah.
which are more downregulating 100%. Yeah, so we used the shape. Mhm. So I went a little bit more on, this would be a great encapsulated, potent example of my intention very clearly was to balance anxiety.
And also the touching, like when you come up, touching the back. So
Yes,
touching yourself really comes yourself down.
100%, like rubbing the legs a little bit, putting hands in the hips to kind of support in the low back. Yeah. I think some touching, if we decided to pat the legs, that would have been more upregulating, right? So these are kind of like the pieces of the puzzle that we're going to unpack today. And I hope you go with like some great ideas, tools in your toolbox. But yeah, did we catch everything here?
If I can just add something, so as someone who lives alone, when we live with someone and we're stressed or we're upset or we're anxious, then the first thing that individual often does is to touch, is to get a hand on the arm or hug or rub it back, stroke or something. And so when you live alone, you don't have that soft, calming touch. And so that gentle pressing of the face, or even like a gentle pressing down of the shoulders, brings something in that a person lives without. And so the touch has a powerful effect to release, to bring down.
100%. That's very primal and very true. And I would also assume that even people that live with someone are touch deprived.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. And the truth is that even if you do get affection from the people that you live with, there's something about self-love and self-touch that is also very healing and very supportive. So 100%. This came to mind too, which we didn't do today, but this is hanging the hands on the shoulders for anxiety is super, super helpful. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about posture too and what muscle groups tend to activate with these different states of being. You know, there's anxiety, there's depression, and then there's space in the middle. And what Bo talks about in our culture right now is that we have minds that are anxious and bodies that are depressed. So please understand that you don't have to do a strictly anxiety balancing or depression lifting class. Even today, where my objective was anxiety balancing, I had some uplifting things. As a matter of fact, if you were really anxious, it might have been very difficult for you to start with that child's pose. And what I find that when the class is kind of buzzing and very active, I'll start in cat-cow or something like that so that I can get them to use the move, you know, rather than putting a hard stop, I'll want them to maybe use their energy to start organizing the movement. And then once they've got some breath and some movement organized, then they're much more readily able to like rest back into a child's pose. Does that make sense? So we're gonna like get to the strategies towards the end, and I want to make sure that you get some of the theory. Some of it will be new, some of it will be review. Emmy, can I bother you to open up the doors? Okay, so if anyone gets hot or cold, just let me know, but the air filter is going on out there. Oh, actually, do you mind walking over and dropping the air filter down? Do you hear how loud it is? Do you remember how that down button dropped it? Okay. Okay, this is research. All right, so the research is supporting yoga as a tool, and it's more definitive than ever. I know so many years, all of this research is 2010 and beyond, which is outstanding. Because for a lot of years, you know, there wasn't anything very recent or very, I guess, very current is the word. So yoga has been determined to be a legitimate treatment for depression and anxiety and it was published in the American Family Physician Journal in 2010. As a treatment for depression, the effectiveness rating was a B. So, you know, compared to the control group, that's a significant positive effect for depression. The positive effect on anxiety wasn't labeled in this study, but the treatment for depression was effective as a B. There were no adverse effects of yoga. So no bad side effects, right? Which we think is kind of funny, but I'm seriously like, look how many things we buy and swallow and inject that have side effects. So the fact that there's no side effect really can make us feel a little bit as a teacher, like just teach my class. I'm not necessarily going to hurt anyone. And if I take someone to a, you know, a B class, you're still lifting their depression, balancing their anxiety, and providing a quality service. So yoga as more than exercise is more effective than yoga as exercise when it comes to anxiety. And this was a study, Narasimhan from 2011, participates in both groups. So some participants did an integrated class, which was yoga plus, what did they call it? Spiritual component, ethical component. So it was an integrated class. So it was a yoga class that had more of the spiritual ethical conversation and offerings and thought-provoking conversation around it versus just a strict exercise. Those in the integrated class experienced decreased depression and stress, increased sense of hopefulness, increased flexibility when compared to the control group. Only the integrated yoga class experienced decreased anxiety-related symptoms and decreased salivary cortisol from the beginning to the end of the study. So only those in the integrated that had a more whole yoga offering received the benefit of reduced anxiety and decreased salivary cortisol, because the exercise only group were stressing in their exercise. Physical exercise is a stressor. So their salivary cortisol levels didn't drop. But yoga, when infused in this integrated way, was able to produce that results. So it's worth it for us to say a little bit of our, not necessarily yoga woo-woo stuff, but I want to know what those, I have to like look at your shirt later, because now I'm so curious about what it says. I'm so distracted. It's all the bones are named. They're all written there in letters. It's so good. We'll put you on the screen later so people at home can see you more. It says emu. It says emu. And I'm like, oh no, it says emu. Okay. So anyway, it's worth it for us to remember that the practice is more than exercise, because that's how people are going to get the bigger benefit from it. And that goes for Miranda when she's teaching bar too, to include some of that conversation and some of that opportunity, and to provide the cool down at the end of the class is a really important part, because you want people to get that whole package. All right, number 4 up here, the half-life. The effects of the poses of the practice over a 10-week period, 34 individuals with depression and 37 healthy volunteers were evaluated. Wait a minute. No, I'm reading the wrong study. Okay, let me back up. I'm so sorry. I told you it was Twilight Zone. Yoga practice has the half-life. This study is from 2010. The GABA, which is one of the neurotransmitters in the brain that has a calming effect, is important in stress resilience. So the GABA determines how we can bounce back out of fight flight into rest digest, or at least neutralize that. The stress hormone cortisol decreased after yoga, but regular practitioners don't have lower baseline levels. So what they found is that yoga needs to be done every day. The cortisol level will drop after the practice, but that doesn't hold over time. Your baseline is the same every day. And then your practice will drop your cortisol level. So yoga is definitely something that needs to be done every day. And the frequency of your practice is more important than the duration. So the study is indicating that shorter practices are fine. It's just every day, right? Something every day. And then this next one that I had started to read, the posture affects the mood, and the mood can affect the posture. And this is why embodiment becomes so important. This is by Gunas out of Brazil in 2010. Over a 10-week period, 34 individuals with depression, 37 healthy volunteers were evaluated, and their posture was assessed. During depressive episodes, the patients showed increased head flexion, increased thoracic kyphosis, a trend toward pelvic left retroversion, and abductor of the left scapula. So something was torquing here to the left side. After remission, after the yoga treatment, the patient's posture were similar to that of control group. So the yoga was able to correct for the posture of depression, which decreased the mood, the depressive mood of the participants in the study. Interesting? I think that that's really interesting because I'm like so excited about embodiment and how we can use our body and our posture to change the way we feel and what we can achieve in life. So then the mindfulness as related to emotion and self-narrative. The mindfulness training alters the neural expression and duration of emotion, and it turns off our narrative mechanism. This study again from 2010, the author was Farb et al., all his friends. So the default mode network is self-referential, dwelling in the past, concerned about the future, comparing the present to how you'd rather it be. That's sort of our default. But through the yoga practice, and in this case, it was yoga nidra body scan, gentle breath work, breath-centered asana, mindfulness, and meditation. And then psychoeducation as it applied to life. So like the inquiry that we do. It can't really be trained through an explanation. So the people had to practice. So when people practiced these things, they were able to learn to feel, to breathe through their feelings without commentary, without storytelling, without meaning making. And so those practices directed non-judgmental attention to their sensory embodied elements of their experience, which promoted this emotional healing and well-being. And so anything that is helping us come into our own experience and our own embodiment is going to support us in being better able to regulate our emotions, the duration of those emotions, how strongly we feel them in our nervous system, and to start to truncate some of that spiraling storytelling that gets us either spiraling down into a depression or spiraling up into an anxiety state. So the yoga as a way of being able to sit in our own experience is what this research is saying. So no one wants to sit and listen to research studies, but everybody's like, is that research based? So check the box. There's research behind that. And I'm a big idea kind of girl. So hopefully you got, at least the big ideas of that. And you can always ask me and I can give you the details if you want to look at the actual studies. This is the map of the mind-body network that Bo Forbes uses. This is her visual conceptual format that she talks about. I like it because she's including a couple of the body systems that we don't talk about a lot. As a matter of fact, I brought it all written out from her so that I can be really accurate in talking to you about what is what. In the middle, you see that she's got the nervous system, and the nervous system is the guardian of the gateway to healing. It blocks healing or allows access to healing. It can limit the possibility to heal, or it can support you in making changes. When the nervous system is out of balance, it limits the release that can heal all of these other bodies. And so it is like the command center. Then we have the mental body, which is the mind. Let me look and see which, that's the lower left in the blue, but not yet purple. What is that? 6, 7, 8 o'clock. The mental mind is our conscious and our unconscious thoughts. The mental mind follows the lead of the nervous system. And like the nervous system, it can be hyper or hypo. It can be jacked up or sluggish. It directly influences the emotional regions of the brain and the emotional body. Okay, so we'll get to the other emotional bodies. The physical body is to the left, like 9 o'clock. The physical body includes our immune system, our enteric nervous system, and most of the other bodies. It communicates with the other bodies, and it agrees to store what we can't deal with. The body's like, hey, I'll take it, whatever. A lot of closet space. Like, you know, mom, when you want to put that extra furniture in her basement, we'll just stash it there. And then you forget about it, right? And mom knows that's going to happen, but she loves you so much and so desperate for you not to leave home. Then she'll take your old cruddy boxes of books, whatever it is. Anyway, the body, the physical body has its own emotional processor, and it stores things in the tissues, the organs, the muscles, the fascia, and the fluid systems. Then we have emotional regions of the brain. She doesn't have that on there specifically labeled, but I'm thinking that she's the, I don't know, we're going to get to it. The neuropeptides are the molecules of emotion. And then a lot about the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which are the 3 glands that work together to manage our emotional memories, our emotional responses. And our emotional regions of the brain interact strongly with our physical body and our immune system. Then we have our deep visceral body, which on this is the, okay, so across at 3 o'clock is the emotional. And then the deep visceral body is down at 6 o'clock. The deep visceral body is primal. It's nonverbal. It's the cold ice just running through when you know, but you don't know why you know, right? When you say, I have a visceral response to that. I don't know why, but oh, I just have a visceral response to him. There's just something that comes through me. It's the storehouse for intense feelings like shame, guilt, the need to caretake others, the desire to be perfect, the need to be taken care of, rage. Did I say shame? It's the storehouse also for wisdom and intuition. So our capacity to relate to our visceral body is really important. It's really important for our healing and the health of the rest of this system, but it's really important to our being too, for our being our brightest and living our best. You know, Brené Brown says that if you can't feel the bad things, you're not gonna be able to feel the good things. And this is that kind of deep intuitive stuff. If you don't know, you know, what you've got stored in there and what those intense inner feelings are, you're not gonna know how to really go to the wisdom or the intuition as well. Then we have pain pathways, and that's like 10, 11 o'clock up there, the purple on the upper left. It's modulated by the nervous system. So pain disorders are nervous system disorders. And neuroplasticity at its best gives us the potential to change that. But neuroplasticity also has fired and wired these pathways in a particular way that we are experiencing. Okay, so when a sensation comes from the nerves to the brain, it is just a sensation. It is the brain that tags it as painful. It is the brain that determines if it's a 2 or a 9, right? So when they say all pain happens in the brain, I have a really hard time with that because I have chronic pain. And I'm like, oh, but I've worked with, no, it really hurts. And yeah, it really hurts, but it's actually really hurting because the brain is sending the signal that it's pain. It's still a warning sign, but yes, it's a signal. The pain is interpreting as, or the brain is interpreting it as pain. It impacts, but also is impacted by our emotions. So the pain pathways are tied into the emotional pathways as well. Then we know that we have the immune system, and the immune system actually has an incredibly good memory. It's tied to the nervous system, and it's tied to the emotional centers of the brain, and it has its own hyper and hypo response system. The enteric nervous system is the upper right green, like 1, 2 o'clock. And that's the belly brain. The enteric nervous system is what's going on in the gut. And there's a lot of conversation about that lately, isn't there? And our gut is a thinking, sensing organism. And all of that activity in the gut, the ecosystem of the gut, can impact how the brain is processing and how the emotional states are processing. So you can see this wheel start spinning and it gets very multidimensional. The gut is housed in the sheaths of tissue, the stomach, the esophagus, the small intestine, the colon, all of it. There are 100 million neurons. There are more neurons in that system of the gut than the spinal cord. And those neurons can act independently. So there's a lot of information coming through our gut that we're not socially, culturally conditioned to access or to use or to even recognize and appreciate, right? So it's one of the reasons why, like, all those forward folds are going to give us this massaging, this calming to the enteric nervous system that downregulates our anxiety. Then we have the fascial web, which is like 4 or 5 o'clock. It's like major math for me to like hold on to the face of the clock. All right, so the fascial web is our web of connective tissue that links every cell in the body. It is sentient, it is intelligent. And what we know from our yin trainings is that there are more nerve endings in the fascia than even in the muscles. So we have this whole culture that's all about the muscles, and all of this other systematic work is going on is actually much more of what is being hitting the field of the brain. So 10 times more nerve endings than the muscle. It's sentient, it's intelligent, the fascial web, and it's connected to the nervous system and the emotional regions of the brain as well. So when we have an emotional reaction, it comes from all of this business, all of this business. The major bodies that are involved in reinforcing anxiety and depression are your nervous system, your mental body, your emotional regions of the brain, which she's calling the limbic system. Okay, the limbic is your emotion, and then your physical body. Those aspects are reinforcing the anxiety and depression to the major degree. To the minor degree, but still can in fact are affected and affect them. So it's like hand in glove, a two-way street. There's a relationship. Minor, the immune system, the enteric nervous system, the deep visceral body, the pain pathways, and the fascial web. So there isn't one system of the body that is not impacted by anxiety or depression, or that doesn't impact your state of anxiety, depression on the continuum. One continuum for anxiety, one continuum for depression, a little, a lot, across the spectrum, how they relate to each other, mentally, physically, emotionally, can be a whole like DJ sound system board. And all of it works together. Nobody is omitted. But the major is your nervous system, your mental body, your emotional regions of the brain, and your physical body. Okay? All right. So we know that the nervous system is the command center. And not to spend one extra moment here than we need to, because this is certainly review for all of you, but I just want to like put the picture in front of you, because it takes a long time to really get the shit straight when it comes to the nervous system. And I mean, I only have gotten better at it because I teach it so often throughout the year, right? But it's actually the autonomic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system is the one that gets you jazzed up, and your parasympathetic is the one that calms you down. And you can see on the right side, the sympathetic nervous system creates all of these very physical changes. And your parasympathetic then creates a different stream, a different flow of activity. And they have the vagus nerve labeled in this particular illustration on the left. It's showing you like the vagus nerve and how it's connected to the bile in the liver, the stomach, the lungs, the heart rate, like it's all related. And the body's really, really intelligent. And so if you kind of find yourself as one of those people with some degree of PTSD-like response, where you get a sympathetic response and it's very hard for you to trigger off. And perhaps that comes out in things like autoimmune issues, right? Like there's no shame in that. You're living in a very intelligent system, right? It's just that you've had some experiences that have kind of knocked it out of balance, and then you need to create different experiences to help yourself come back into balance. And that's what we want to remember about these people that practice with us, right? Like these people, yeah, are all jacked up. Ugh, that girl, she, even in Shavasana, she's like squirming around. What's the matter with her? Or, oh my goodness, I've worked, taught with classes where people come regularly, and the dysregulation of the breath, even in Shavasana, to have someone in the room breathing like, in Shavasana, practice after practice. Oh, thank God they come back. But people will get up and they'll like give them a look and roll their eyes. And I think, oh my God, we should just be quiet so everybody can have a Shavasana. And it's like, I don't know what experiences have created a situation where that's the breath in a Shavasana, but I am really glad if yoga can do, like, I don't know, even a little thing to help this poor person. And sure enough, within a year, that whole thing had started to flush out. But she has to show up every day, and she did. You know, a lot of people won't come back because that's so uncomfortable to be there now. So, you know, we just need to like teach people. And one of the things that has really changed in my teaching as a result of the trauma training, as a result of this kind of awareness and understanding, is that I really appreciate that last portion of class with the yin poses and the you know, the forward folds and those closing poses and Shavasana. And even though the time can be hard to manage, you know, we really need to use those and to teach our yang portions in a way that's very yang, and to teach our yin portions in a way that's legitimately yin, so that people can balance their nervous system. And we need like all these little tools in our toolbox, you know, like we'll talk today. What about the breath? What about, you know, pressure point releasing? What about embodiment cueing? What about these things? But let's talk about yoga. So in this slide, it's not necessarily the best illustration, but I wanted to give you some conversation from the Gunas. All right, so do we remember the Gunas? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva being the harmony, the clarity, the lightness that we hold in our expression, the wisdom, the luminosity, the balance, the well-being. And when sattva is in balance, that's what it is. For some people, folks think that sattva is the destination of the practice and that there's even something beyond being sattvic. Can you be too sattvic? Yeah, you can be out of balance and be like all sattvic and not have enough rajas to pay your bills and do what you need to do in a day, and not enough tamas to feel grounded and anchored in life, you know. So, you know, none are good, none are bad, but this is like the yoga kind of conversation of this nervous system balance. Rajas is our creativity, our drive, our action, our achievement, our go, 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 our movement. Agitation almost has like a negativity to it. It can be to the point of agitation, but in its healthy expression. Rajas is like the stem of the flower that grows up, and it's going to be the support. And it's you getting up every day and doing what you need to do to make things happen for yourself. Can you be too Rajic? Yes. Rajasic. Yes, you can. You can be too driven, and that burn yourself out kind of an idea, but you need some to it. So without a little Rajas, you're going to be kind of flat. Your tamas is going to be too elevated. You're going to be kind of bogged down, and you've got an experience of anxiety, or I mean, depression. If you're too Rajas, too activated, then you've got like this buzzed up, fired up kind of experience of anxiety, right? So then under tamas, we've got the inertia, the heaviness, these all sound a little negative in this slide. But really the tamas is like the roots of the plant. It's your groundedness. It's the ability to sit deeply into your stillness, right? So can you be too tamasic? Yeah, and that's where it gets bogged down. That's where then it gets a lot of inertia, a lot of darkness, lethargy, like that kind of thing. And that's going to be more of a depressive experience, right? So through these labels, just reminding us, and what Bo Forbes is talking about lately is that our bodies, tamas, our minds, rajas. And so what we want to do is balance so that we feel a little more sattvic, balanced, evened out, and we've got our gunas in good order. Thoughts? Good? Heard the gunas before?
So if we could add in the nervous system, autonomic nervous system to apply to this. So Rajas is more likely to sympathetic nervous, too much sympathetic
Yes.
nervousness, and Tamas is more like a parasympathetic nervous.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And so in a healthy, balanced nervous system, you're rajasic
it's
when you
like,
need to, you're
mhm.
tamasic when you need to, you're able to kind of like come into those
Yeah.
mid ranges of that
To make
and make like a
way.
functional person, right? Right? And so, you know, this particular slide and some explanations have us with this destination sattva. And yeah, if you're saying that sattva is the balance of rajas and tamas, but I think this illumination of sattva can sometimes be beyond, and that all of it can be really considered part of what we're balancing. And yeah, the rajas is going to be your sympathetic, and your tamas is going to be your parasympathetic to keep in balance. Just reminding us that we're yogis first and foremost, and I don't accidentally get into this idea that I'm some sort of a therapist, right? And I like that language because it's a nice language, great vocabulary for bringing people into a yoga practice and talking about anxiety and depression without calling it anxiety and depression. How normalizing would it feel if we're just like, oh, I'm a little too rajasic right now? And that these are the Sanskrit terms that the yogis have been talking about, because it's always been difficult to be human. It's always been a challenge to balance out our human characteristics. These rajas, tamas, sattva, like these gunas are the raw material of our life. Like we're here to figure that out. They're like the part of being human that we come here to be human for, right? So it can be a nice conversation added to, you know, your work on balancing and lifting. All right, so there's a neurophysio-emotional pattern. And in this neurophysio-emotional patterning, we're looking at the anxiety samskara. So remember what samskaras are. Samskaras are the looping, the patterning that we get trapped in. Samskaras are like our heavy karmic beliefs and patterns that we just seems to get tripped over again and again and again. Well, that's a really deep samskara. In Light on Yoga, Light on Life, Iyengar has a little metaphor about the ripples at the bottom of the lake. And if you're a smoker, then you would think that every time you have a cigarette, that ripple at the bottom of the lake gets a few more grains of sand on it. And after smoking for 30 years, you've got like this really, you know, visible ripple underneath the lake. And at the top of the lake, it can seem really smooth and you think, I'm just going to stop smoking and I'm just going to stop smoking. But underneath there, there's like that ripple that creates a little energetic current. And so it's going to be really hard for the water on the top to stay smooth and silky, because every time you like smell a cigarette or have that moment of habit where you grab your coffee or whatever it is for you when you smoked for 30 years, right? It's going to like trigger up that ripple, and it's going to bubble up through the surface, and you're going to get that agitation of I should be grabbing this cigarette right now. And it's going to be such a deep samskara, such a deep patterning, that it takes a whole lot of effort to release. And so what, and again, this is from Bo Forbes, what she's pointing out here is that we have neurophysio-emotional patterning that puts us into an anxiety cycle. And then we have some that puts us in a depressive cycle. So in this, if you start at the box, I'm in a group situation. I want everyone's approval. I become ungrounded and disassociate. I get a little bit of anxiety, and then I get hypervigilant. My thoughts start racing and my speech gets faster. And then I start having this he, she, they don't like me, they don't accept me. And then I realize, oh, I hate myself too, self-loathing, overt distress. And then I withdraw, and then there's this loneliness, and then I'm in this group situation. And like we get like this cycle of anxiety that it's in our neurophysio-emotional patterning. So it's the ripple underneath the water, just like when you smoke, or just like when you drink, or just like when you do other things. It's a subconscious patterning that we've established because we've done it over and over and over. And so one way to think of karma is like a reverberation. And so this pattern is our reverberation, and it's reverberating through our neurology, through our physical form, through our limbic system, our emotional limbic system, through our visceral body. It's like embedded in all of the koshas, right? It's like a part of our whole system. And somehow, like, how do we get our fingers in the crack to start changing it? And that can happen through our yoga practicing. This nervous system around anxiety like gets triggered, the cortex of the brain slows, and it involves the processing to information. So our information processing is slower when our place in anxiety can't think clearly and make good decisions, which is why once this wheel gets kicked, it's really difficult to pull on out of there, right? It's really difficult because your cortex has been kind of like hijacked. The amygdala, which is our immediate response for fight or flight, gets triggered. And then we're just like, get me out of here. I got to get out of here, right? Then the anxiety starts bubbling up. So we can begin to respond to threats before we're even consciously aware of them, because we're so good at anticipating this scene that way up here, just when we enter the group, already our limbic system and our visceral system has already decided that this whole thing is coming, right? So this whole scene is going to start coming. And you can take this and put your own little life issues like in that, and break it down to see like, where can I start getting something inserted in the pattern before I've gone too far. It's good to have a friend to do that with, or a therapist. Not me, I'm just a yoga teacher. But what I'm saying is like this whole scene in our yoga practice, when we talk about reactivity, that's kind of what we're practicing with people, right? Is how to stay for an extra breath. So all of our physical activities start. The heart beats faster, blood pressure rises, lungs hyperventilate, respiration increases, we sweat, there's muscle tension. We begin to get hyper alert about our surroundings. The adrenaline courses through, the cortisol, the blood, decreased digestion, like all of this starts. And it can happen whether there's any legit danger or not. And it's okay to stop, but what happens is once this is triggered, it's very difficult to start because it's much easier to turn on the nervous system than it is to turn off or to turn on the parasympathetic, right? And in terms of the limbic system is going to include our hippocampus, our hypothalamus, and our amygdala, and it's concerned with learning, memories, and emotion. And so when we have these experiences, it starts to get patterned in pretty soon, or pretty readily, which is why even like one negative event can smack a pattern like this into the system, right? Into your subconscious, because the whole body's listening all the time and your body's really smart and your body wants to keep you safe. All right. So the effects of this anxiety issue are issues with the immune system, premature aging, short circuiting of your thought processes, adrenal overload and exhaustion, digestive, respiratory, and cardiovascular disease risk goes up. So this is the cycle for your neurophysical emotional patterning around depression. This is the samskara. This is the loop. This is the imprint that can happen. And at this example, it's people come to me with problems. You could put any example on here, but it's just showing how this is one example. People come to me with problems. I have discomfort, empathy, and I feel guilt. I feel like I need to fix them. And then I start to give out too much energy, and then I get depleted and I get angry and bitter. And I just get depressed or angry. And then I beat myself up for my feelings. And I try to find other people to start to feel better, but then they tell me their problems, and then I'm on this cycle again. Okay. And so it's rather similar for depression, is believed to be a biochemical illness, lower amounts of neurotransmitters in the brain or difficulties with the reuptake of these transmitters in the neural synapses. So that's true, we know, for serotonin, epinephrine, and epinephrine. There's the missing syllable, epinephrine. Selected serotonin reuptake inhibitors and norepinephrine uptake inhibitors are what we commonly call antidepressants. But family history takes a role. Trauma and stress can often induce depression. Sometimes it remains as reactive depression, which means that it's a reaction to this event, and there's a healing that can happen quicker, and other times there's then just, people are left with depression. A pessimistic personality is more likely to has a higher risk of becoming depressed. And depression can come along with other anxiety disorders. So eating disorders, schizophrenia, anxiety disorders, generalized anxiety disorders can come with depression.
Can I add something right here?
Yeah.
So I just had an epiphany.
Yeah.
So when you said the body is always listening, the body wants to keep us safe, okay. The body also has an incredible memory.
Yes.
So the body keeps the score. We could be in a situation that we're not in danger, but the body says, this looks just like this event.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. That's exactly what we experience when it comes to a samskara. And it can happen before we're cognitively aware of it, because we are very perceptive in our visceral and limbic bodies. We're very perceptive of the electromagnetics going on. Like, we can pick up on things that we're not cognitively aware of. And that cycle can get kicked, whether it's for anxiety or depression, right? Without our cognitive awareness. And so, that can be called being hijacked, right? We get hijacked. We don't necessarily have a way of anticipating it. Yeah, 100%. And Body Keeps the Score is another great book to read about it. I'll just mention in case anybody's watching, but I know a lot of people have read it. The evidence currently is that depression can have a long-term negative influence on our immune system. And so how our body works as a whole function is becoming more and more interesting. So this is why we can change someone's thinking patterns, like through cognitive restructuring or cognitive behavioral therapy. We can do that, but the emotional memory is still there. So as a singular threaded strategy, cognitive behavioral therapy or cognitive restructuring, isn't found to be as a singular the 100% answer for a lot of people. Okay, not to come out of my lane, but this thinking and these teachings are saying that there's a gap there between our cognition and what the whole system is experiencing. And that's why yoga is helpful as an adjunct to cognitive restructuring or cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay, and we can get our practice into this thing. And if you're a therapist and you want to do yoga therapy, Corey's going to do yoga therapy, then he's going to learn a lot about it, and then he'll be a yoga therapist and he can do that. But I'm just a yoga teacher, so I'm just giving you some strategies to help people up and down regulate, manage themselves. When we talk about posture, there is a posture, and this is really an image from the breath work. You've seen these before, but I couldn't find one that really gave an accurate anxiety posture versus depression posture. But well, how does our posture adjust to depression? Think of the Peanuts cartoon and Charlie Brown. I don't know. Like, what happens? There's this collapse right here on the far right with the shoulders and the chin jutting and the neck compressing in the back and the front of the chest cavity getting closed off, right? And so this is someone that, on the right there, his upper body at any rate, would be one of the patterns of depression that you might see. So in terms of a yoga teacher, what do we do to counter that? What can we do to open up the front of the chest, to align the neck, to bring the energy all the way up the spinal line system, to activate, right, up, so that people can get an energetic experience that counters their depressive experience, so that the mood can affect the posture and the posture can affect the mood. And we know they're going to have to come back tomorrow. But the half shelf life has at least provided some awareness and some remedy today, right? Converse to that, the anxiety posture is more of a bracing. And so that's more like when something goes bam, what do we do? What engages, right? So what do you think about anxiety? What would be the postural response to anxiety. Yeah, you might be, what's it called? Like always hyper alert.
Yeah.
So the shoulders are going to be higher. You'll still get this. There's two like reflexes the body has. One is this protective. And so for a lot of people in an anxiety position, the adductors, where the inner thighs are tight, the arms go tight, the psoas go tight, and they kind of like walk around a little guarded, a little protected. And they don't walk around like this because they'd have to hop, but like even standing up, their inner thighs are just on. Their upper arms are on. They're a little tight to the, I see this in myself, so I know. There's just a little onness in the shoulders, right? And I mean, we went through a period of time with a lot of stress and trauma in my house. And it landed there, you know, it landed there. And I remember using the words, like, I feel like I'm always waiting for the train to crash. I'm always like, and it was a subtle expression, but it was there long enough that I've had to really work to unravel that, because the muscles will hold and then the fascial will form. And then here I am kind of like frozen in this kind of subtle gripping. The other thing that the body reflexes is this, like when you take to the bottom of an infant's foot and you go like this, and the doctor does it to infants to see if their reflexes are on, and the infant arcs back. Like there can be this kind of a like frozen, alerted kind of reflex that kind of sticks with people. So anxiety, you know, can unravel those fascial patterns in our asanas. Okay. I really want to show you this neck thing. We did it in Warrior 2, but we're going to do it to the end too. How are we doing? Really well. All right. So what kind of things, and in particular, I'm working off of Bo Forbes's work because she has it organized so nicely. I can just like copy the little list to make sure we tick the boxes. What are the recommended practices? We want to balance the nervous system. We've talked a lot about that today, right? The upregulation, the downregulation. Pratyahara is what? It's a test. 500 level yoga teachers. Pratyahara. Not yet. Not yet. It's the one before that. Of the 8 limbs, it's.
Yeah,
Corey, come on, man.
coming out from the sensation.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Sense withdrawal. Coming away from the external senses and coming into your own internal experience. So, I mean, I think Pratyahara, balancing the nervous system, these things aren't things that we never do in yoga. These are all things that we do in yoga. It's just how do we get intelligent and mindful about applying it to help people manage with anxiety and depression. And let's face it, in any class, you'll have people who are anxious and people that are depressed, right? You're not going to have, hi, we're all here with anxiety today. Very good. Here's my anxiety reducing class. We're going to have things all across the board. But pranayama, we can use the breath work. Bandhas, and this is big for Bo Forbes. And one of the reasons why I really like is that it is embodiment. When you start using the body, the bandhas, you bring people into their body, which is going to give them an experience of pratyahara. She uses the root, the navel, and the foot. I like to include the neck. And when we talk about this chamber up the back of the neck and how the drainage happens here, the blood flow goes up to the brain, and the impact of all of that, then you can see why I include the neck as well. And why not? If you're going to talk about 3, just talk about 4, but she does the 3. Slow transitions, and that's her signature. And when you work with her, slow means slower than even me today. Very slow, but bringing people into, in the least, if you're not going to micro the transitions to something very slow, bringing people in the least to a relationship with their breath, moving their body at the least. And, even when you have folks in down dog and say, inhale, lift your right foot, do they do this? Or can they lift their right foot to the length of the breath and slowly and mindfully lift the foot? So even if you pick, like today I did warrior 2, reverse warrior, warrior 2, reverse warrior, like do it a few times and then play the challenge on the table. Can you align that transition back and forth to the duration of your breath? Can you breathe deeper, move slower? Can you use the muscles to move the bones and kind of like pick little things where they're working with the slower transition and more awareness. Micro alignments, anything you can do to support people, like today when we did the pressing the foot down, lifting the arch, and little small tweaks in their asana is going to bring them into their body, into their embodiment. Pratyahara, start getting them interested in something other than their samskara cycle, right? Fascial reintegration, it's not facial, it's fascial. I don't even know if I spelled it right for fascial, but that's exactly what it is. Fascial integration. So getting the fascial lines, the pulls and the tugs through the fascial lines so that some of the tension can unravel. And remember that the emotional storage, where the body stores things, it stores it in the fascia. It stores it in the organs. What's holding the organs in place? Fascia. So the fascia, even the around the organs, can get tight, which prevents the organs from getting their fresh blood flow, lymphatic fluid around them, the massage, you know. So all of this fascial reintegration can help us unwrap the, you know, clean out the closet. And then restorative experiences. And she's putting restorative experiences really here for downregulating the nervous system, for unraveling the fascia that's holding the chronic stress, for the lymphatic flush, but also for the magic combination of being relaxed in your body and alert in your mind. Okay, so our tendency right now is to be depressed in the body. And we want to be relaxed in the body versus depressed in the body and disconnected from the body. Depression is a disconnection. Right? And alert in the mind, and they're coming anxious in the mind. And we think, oh, they're so anxious, I want their mind to be just like, you know, we don't want to take anxiety people to a point of mental depression. We just want to bring it down to alertness, okay? And so we have to get people really engaged in their experience somehow. Somehow. I want to make sure I got it all. Remember the fascial reintegration, the fascia is tied to the nervous system, and the fascial system is sentient and intelligent. So if we want the nervous system to work well, the fascial system has to be working well. The lymphatic flow comes through the fascial system too. So if we want the immune system working well, then the fascial material has to be healthy. Micro adjustments, especially the cervical spine, open up the flow of prana and the lymphatic flush from the brain. Low-grade headaches are like epidemic. Like, I don't even know if I talk to very many people lately who don't say I get migraines too. Yeah, I know, and you're young, right? And she's really young. These slow transitions support all the systems. It's a really big embodiment thing. The bandhas benefit the nervous system, the emotional body, the physical body, the enteric nervous system. So your bandhas help lift all of this nervous system in the gut and up through the digestive line. For depression, the bandhas are great because they energize without overstimulating. They're also very stabilizing, which is good for the anxiety. The bandhas also help with boundaries because when you know where you are, you know where you are. And then you know where other people need to stay away or come closer, right? You know where you are. Emotional contagion was one thing that she talked a lot about, which is just like people who are spongy to pick up emotions from other people. So the stronger the core is, the more capable you are of managing that. And I think it's like when the core is strong, the aura gets stronger too. And the aura is really protective. And you can start to be able to feel like you've got a shield from other people's emotions. And then we talk a lot about that non-reactivity and our capacity to be calm in the face of the challenge, which helps with emotional regulation as well. All right. So what kinds of things in this little list here are going to balance anxiety? Pratyahara is the inner awareness, right? And so one of the things that really helps with Pratyahara are like questionings, to get people to kind of come into their own inner work and find some meaning. I know, it's so good, right? I know, it's Corey. I know, Mama didn't recognize you for a beat of a moment.
I was
She would
reading,
have.
I was reading, but I would
Yeah.
have known the back of that neck.
Yeah, right? And I love it that his hands are, that's my favorite child's pose too. It's just like coming, it really pulls me in. And so here are some of the questions that you might access, just not necessarily word for word. And you can see I kind of played with number 4 there on the list. Who am I not? But what is my blank trying to teach me? What is my anxiety trying to teach me? What is my depression trying to teach me? What is my enemy trying to teach me? What is my challenge trying to teach me? What is my blessing trying to teach me? You know, like what is something trying to teach me? It's like gets you turned on the inside. One of the things that we have to remember is that we're really not supposed to get our old life back. We're not supposed to have things always stay the way they were. We're actually here to create new, constantly creating, readjusting, growing. And so these questions bring us into opportunities for self-study, which is the pratyahara piece, whether it's anxiety or depression. The anxiety, the depression, they're messengers. They point out where we're out of balance. It's today a grip your jaw kind of day. What is that telling you? What's it communicating to you? Can you be a listener? And when you start to pose these kinds of questions, it's not because you have any answers or because people should answer you. They actually are best if they don't answer you. You're just triggering the psyche. You're triggering the psyche so that you can start spinning this wheel back here. So you can start spinning this wheel back here and see where can I get a little crack in something? Is it the emotion that's going to give? It's the gut that's going to give. We're in child's pose. Is it the pain modulation pathways that are going to kind of like spark? Like what's going to give me what that I can get people digging a little bit deeper and having an experience that balances anxiety, lifts depression, right? That brings them into a better emotional place. What is the difference between my inner awareness and my outer awareness? There are definitely places in all of our lives where we're incongruent. You know, I feel like I'm really, really healthy. If you judge by the amount of water I drink, I'm not healthy at all. Do you know how many times my guides have told me you need to drink more water? Remember how you used to drink it with a tablespoon of chia seeds in it? Do you know where your water bottle is? Yes, it's right in that cupboard. Do you know how many times in my morning meditation they tell me that? And I have yet to fill the water bottle. I mean, I did once a couple months ago. I filled it and I carried it around that day. And then it was growing chia seeds in my car a week later and I had to dump it. And I was like, fail again. Sorry, guys. And then I sit there like this and pray, please tell me, give me guidance. I'm like, just water, babe, just water. That's all we got for you. Start with water, everything will fall into place. And we all have that, right? And that's a really safe example for me to share that's light, that kind of like, oh yeah. And then people are laughing and we're starting to like shake down the system a little bit. And maybe later today, tomorrow, or a week from now, they'll have an experience where like, ooh, my inner and my outer are incongruent, right? All right. Also this idea of the quality of my inner gaze, like how do I, what kind of vision do I apply to myself? Am I compassionate witness? Yoga Sutras 2.17 says the cause of our suffering is identification with the fluctuations of the mind. Right? The cause of our suffering is that we think we are our crazy stuff. The cause of my suffering might be that I think I am my anxiety. The cause of my suffering I might think I am my depression. And I really struggled in my life in my 20s and early 30s with anxiety and depression. And two things happened. One is that I got really, really busy and I didn't have the luxury of wallowing or freaking, right? Like I was required to anchor. So like that was like almost like a trauma response. I don't know if that was helpful. Like I'd recommend that to anyone or not, but I have to recognize that that was really impactful in how I managed it. But the two was that someone said to me, you are not your depression. Depression's an energy dysregulation. You're having that depressive experience, but you're not your depression. Now, here I am stepping on that line. I'm not a therapist. I can't tell that to anyone, right? But when we're talking about low-grade things, this suggestion that the cause of our suffering might be the fluctuations of our mind and that we could have a more compassionate inner gaze might allow someone to start exploring and discover something like that for themselves, right? Like, does that apply to me? Am I more than my problems? Am I more than my freaked out reaction to why he didn't call me back, or why she said this, or who's posting this or that about the success they're having? And clearly, you know, I'm such a loser, like whatever, you know, we get tangled up in, whatever that wheel is, right? Because there are a million going on in my life all the time. Okay. How do I relate to the world? Like observing this idea. What do I cling to? What do I push away? You know, I've been asking for this, that, and the other around the studio, and then someone reaches out with an email offering exactly what I've been asking for. And I'm like, and like I push it away, and I'm like, why am I having a hard time trusting the answer that I'm asking for? Like, here it is, right? And then I have to say, like, notice with some compassion, what am I clinging to? What am I pushing away? This is how I relate to the world, like how I can start to soul see. So I can see something other than this that I'm living in, which is, you know, causing me some stress, some dysregulation, some anxiety in my case. All right. So when it comes to pratyahara, those are helpful questions. When it comes to breath work, it's 1 to 2. So you want a twice as long exhale as you have for inhale in order to reduce. So at the end of our practice, did you see how I stepped you into a longer and longer exhale? And we did a lot of longer exhales. I probably wouldn't do that so many times in a class, but I wanted you to have a potent experience. And so we also did a longer exhale in the horse with arm vinyasas. We also did a longer exhale in down dog, but there was another one we did it in. I don't remember, one early at the beginning. Maybe it was a forward fold. It was something where I said exhale forever the first time I said it. I don't remember where we were the first time I said it. Maybe child's pose. Okay. So also Satali breath is cooling, so that's a good one for anxiety. And alternate nostril breathing is good for anything, depression or anxiety. So you can put that on both lists. And the 1 to 2 is the key. The exhale longer than the inhale is the key for dropping the nervous system. The deep sigh is also good too. That will bring in your variable heart rate variability, and allow your heart rate to drop for the big sigh. Restorative yoga, Bo Forbes uses in both practices, but I know that you can actually do great work without using restorative poses, but I will say that we can use more restorative yoga mindset towards the end portion of our classes, so that if you're not a restorative yoga teacher, but you can just take some of the clues from how you do teach restorative yoga, making sure that people are propped and supported so that they don't have to support themselves, making sure that the music comes down to something much quieter, that the lights are dimmed, that your voice is quieter or maybe even silent, like those ways of supporting people to bring the end of their practice down to stillness. Also in restorative, legs up the wall is good for anxiety and depression, but in terms of down regulating for anxiety, it's downward oriented poses that are very helpful. So child's pose with the forehead on the block or on a bolster, side lying twists, face down in Shavasana is a great way to end with a down regulator, and all kinds of massaging into the enteric nervous system, very comforting. If you have people face up, you might put a bolster like long way on their abdomen, or a blanket horizontally on there to add a little bit of weight. That's down regulating. A cloth over the eyes if they have a shirt or something like that can also be nice to relieve anxiety. The micro alignment that we're going to do, we're going to talk about maybe we'll just do it for a meditation at the end. So I want to hold on that. The Bandha work we worked with today on bringing the energy up. So I feel like I gave you a great example on that. And anything for lymphatic drainage. So where are the big lymphatic stores in our body? Armpits, up front of the hip, inner groin, both. Yeah, both. This, behind the knee. the soft of the low back, so a little bit behind the kidneys can be helpful, but it's not the major one. You hit the major ones. And then we're going to talk about this neck thing and how to bring some drainage through this glandular area too. But even like stroking up the front of the neck, like this stroke up, this gentle stroking to the face, which can go up in the way, patting type, lightly on the face, light on the chest, patting under the arms. So all of that patting, bouncing. So if you start in jumping or bouncing, that's one way when people are anxious to get them moving. If you start with a little bouncing up off the heels like this and get them jiggling their arms, there's a lymphatic drain to that, which is coming through the fascial material, your enteric system, your limbic system, all of that kind of emotional charge starts to drop. Emmy does this brushing off her shoulders and stuff. You can do that kind of thing too, 100%. And then the fascial release, which is nice to do whether you're yoga tune-up trained or not, that people can just use their thumbs in different places to kind of release that. And we did it today in the face, but you can use the feet in a half pigeon, this front spot right on the heel there, and the front double pigeon kind of pressure point there is one way to kind of drain through the hips. You can use pressure points down the IT band to release the soft parts here in front of the pec minor. So all of that kind of pressure work is really great for your anxiety reducing. And then when we look at posture, we're relieving this jutting forward of the neck. We're opening up the shoulders and the pec minor because this is and this is. So shrugging is another really nice one for anxiety, to just like loosely shrug and bring this down. But you can do strap work. You can do binds behind the back. All of that starts to open up this anxiety posture. Bound angle pose. So we did today seated. You could do supta. You can use blocks underneath to support so that there doesn't need to be any gripping, but things that open up this inner groin area are really helpful. Also, all of your psoas stretches. So even today, I didn't do in our crane pose that we could have was lifting up and really elongating up the psoas side, taking our side stretches and then turning, to get that front deep or that deep psoas muscle opened up. The hip flexors also will sometimes be really tight, so that kind of work. But and did I miss anything? These are like the major tight areas when you're anxious. And you pretty much would know that, but I want to make sure that we just kind of go through tick boxes. So for depression, we're using the same Pratyahara inquiry, right? We went over the questions for those. So that's the same, just sense withdrawal, getting people in their bodies. Breath work is 1-to-1. So box breath, inhale, hold, da, da. Inhale for 4, retain 4, exhale 4, retain 4. It's even breath, Durga. Inhale 4 count, exhale 4 count. Alternate nostril breathing with the same proportion of inhale and exhale. Ujjayi, a soft ujjayi. And then also she calls a climbing breath, which is in 4, out 4, in 5, out 5, in 6, out 6, in 7, out 7. And of course, not just one breath, but like we did today, where you do like, 20 seconds at 4 count, and then 20 seconds at 5 count, so that you're asking people to start to deepen the breath and to bring more excitement to their inner experience, but you're not, stressing them. It's moving in a progressive manner. In restorative poses, this is a great example. We're looking at poses that are upward oriented, and we're opening up the same depression. We're opening up the same, kind of upper body system that we worked with some anxiety. It's just that with anxiety, this open might be too energetic, and we're going to maybe start downward facing, but we do want to open up the pec minor and that too. Today we used puppy dog to open up the shoulders, and I cued you for dropping the heart. That's one way to open this tight anxiety posture up without being upward facing, right? Okay. So you want to think about that, because if people are a little on the depressed side and they come to a restorative practice and they're not getting anything upward facing, then all of that extra downward facing may not balance them as much as you might want. Slow transitions again for all the embodiment, and we'll work a couple moments with cues around that too. And then micro alignment, the same thing. I use a lot of the micro alignment. We're going to do the neck for anxiety and depression, but around the bandhas too. So when you think about actioning up the inner groin, or I mean the inner arch of the foot and coming up, then you know those specific cues to get people in their bodies. The lymphatic drainage, we talked about that. For depression, more like the padding, that would be a little bit more stimulating to the nerve endings and more lifting up. And then the fascial release, the same too. All right. That seems like a little anticlimactic after that, right? Like you kind of already knew it. So the past trauma is like when we're trapped in the past, we're riding that depression cycle is really what we're assuming, you know, when we talk about depression being of the past. I wouldn't say 100% and for everyone, but that's like what quote they say. That's not yoga, right? Then you're not in the present moment. And then the plan for the future, which is what they say is the anxiety samskara cycle, being out in the future, that's not yoga. But this here and now, and this here and now noticing, that's really the yoga. And so I feel like I do a lot of teaching around this cueing for embodiment and cueing people to stay in the moment. So does anyone want to just like offer a couple thoughts? Like, I feel like I've talked a lot about invitational language, so that people feel like they are invited to do something rather than required to do something. Like you might lift your right hand up, you could roll the right wrist around, you know, having some language that's invitational, having sensory-based cues. And Kaylee, you know, pointed out the cueing in the class this morning really got people to think about more than just where their hands and feet were. And then agency or choice, giving people a chance to say, you know, does my back knee come down here? Does my back knee stay up? Those kinds of things are still, you know, best practices are best practices, whether it's anxiety, depression, or just a grade level day, you know? Does anyone want to talk about that a little bit in terms of what you see in your classes when you're cueing? What seems to be helpful for getting to people in their bodies so that they can have this experience of pratyahara, which is, you know, supportive for both anxiety and depression?
The props help me too. So this morning, well, yesterday I took a class and I walked out of the room like really agitated because of the way that she was moving the hips was just like not conducive to like all body practices, I guess.
Right.
So this morning I made my practice about the hips. So to start, I folded up the hip and put it at the hips. And then we tuned into that for the whole class. So for me, sometimes, and teaching restorative too, the props help. If you have the prop on the part of the body to get them to focus on it, they seem to be more in tune throughout the rest of the class to know, okay, this is where I focus at the beginning of class, and this is my focus for the rest of the class.
100%. You're giving them a really tangible experience in their sensory system, and that's going to land in the memory. And then they can go back to that and pattern back to that to stay in their body, to stay embodied. Yeah. I love that you did that in front of the hips, and that's how she was working. It made me think too, even if it's not throughout the class, you can use a prop just to accentuate a particular area and bring awareness to an area. Like in Campbell, the people that can get back, I'll put a block sometimes on the sternum and say, breathe up into the block, right? Or, yeah, that came to mind right off. Like we have used straps in the arms to lengthen the arms, and then do the poses without the straps to feel like the strap helped you create the shape. And then can you find the shape without the strap? So different ways to use props. All right, great. Great.
Because then removing them, you know, they remember where the prop was or how you used it. And it kind of helps with that like the boundaries, you know, like even if you're using a strap, like, okay, if I pull it like this is how it feels, can I do that without it? And then you're still like creating the boundary, like, okay, I'm not holding the strap, I know what my hands are, you know?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and you're also like talking about body mapping.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is hugely important, hugely important. I mean, one of the things that you're seeing when you see people that go, you make you go, is that they don't have a body map, like they don't have a neuromuscular conversation going between their brain and their body. So their mind's eye can't find their left foot, doesn't know where their left foot is. And like, you know, you'll cue it 2, 3, 4 times, and then, you know, like your left foot, left foot, the one on the left, the foot. You know, it's like that awareness takes a long time to pattern and to establish. And if you maybe were an athlete and you know, have been doing embodied things, but for a lot of people, and would it be more of an issue, do you think, with anxiety or depression?
I have someone that has started coming to one of my classes and realized he was the relative of someone. And the first time he came to class, and based on his eyes and bizarre behavior, he wasn't doing anything that we were doing. And I would repeat the cue and repeat the cue, and then find out that he's schizophrenic and he's not taking his medication. And so what I cue, the body part, the movement, like when we were doing our supine twist, he was on his back with one leg out hovering when we were in a supine twist, and he never moved that leg.
Yeah.
But the first time, I just thought he was stoned out of his mind.
Yeah.
And finally, I stopped because it was almost like, you know, just short of bring the right foot forward, damn it, you know?
Right.
But he was completely disembodied. Completely disembodied.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I pose the question, would that be more depression, more anxiety? It's both, right? Like you can be, when you're anxious, you're disembodied. I remember like when the kids were little, I was single momming it. One time I looked down, you know those white kids canvas tennis shoes we wore, right? Like there was blood on it. And I'm like, where's there blood on my shoe? Here, it was like rubbing against my toe in some way that my toe was bleeding. And I was so disembodied, I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel that it was tight to begin with. I couldn't feel that it was rubbing to a blister. I couldn't feel that it was now bleeding. You know, I just was so disembodied, and that was an anxiety issue. But also depression. Depression is very disembodied. Depression is like a head walking around with a body that dangles like a sock, right? And there's no compression. So it's really the embodiment that we want. So the props can be helpful. The cues can be helpful. Repeating it can be helpful, but you know.
I like to use the blocks a lot.
Yeah.
At the beginning of today's class, it's underneath the, you know, forehead, and most people are not accessible to put the forehead on the ground.
Yeah.
Right? So, I always say, don't think like usage of props is a weakness. It's more like a wisdom.
Right.
You are just raising the lower up, or if you use underneath your hand, you are extending your arms rather than borrowing this. And this is more like this wisdom and also practice to accept the help, which I need to.
Yeah, exactly. So those are really nice ways to bring it into a compassionate relationship with self. The blocks, and I also feel like metaphors are very effective at getting people in their body. So as if this or like that, you know, so that you can paint a picture with it. Bring your hands back like wings. Lift your shoulder blades like you're soaring high in the sky, like things that can get people to bring pictures to their mind, can help people come into their body and start to develop that body mapping situation. And, you know, and that alleviates both anxiety and depression.
Getting them to touch their body too, especially because we live in the world of like not being able to touch.
100%.
And like you were saying, just if you don't receive touch on a regular basis, touching yourself can make you realize like, oh yeah, I'm not alone. Like I still,
Right.
you know, I can still do this and bring comfort to myself.
And also like me versus them.
Yeah.
Like, you know, where am I? Like 100%, it can help people find themselves. So there's a lot that I really have learned to weave into the beginning and the ends of classes, a lot of things that have informed me about my cueing and how to cue about posture. Because if you tell people we're opening this, you know, we're laying on the ground and we're opening up into this front of this shoulder, because sometimes I'll tell people, because you know, the driving and the computer, this gets close, this gets tight. But also, you know, when we're worried, we can bring the shoulders and protect over the heart, or when we've been hurt, or when we feel forgotten, you know, those things. So when you plant those little seeds and just weave this kind of thinking into your conversation, it brings awareness, and people can start to be their own therapists. Right? Okay.
Without realizing it, a lot of times sometimes in mountain, but often now in Warrior One, when I have them draw their arms back and then sink into their knee and then bring the heart space up without even realizing, I realize now my language is, if it's all women, it's like, there she is.
Yes.
Or like, from you in the 300, so much talk about dignity, that oftentimes I will almost get choked up when I spend a couple extra minutes in mountain, and it's like, stand in your dignity, there it is, you know. And so often celebratory in language.
Yes, good mother, right? Good mother, the affirmative good mother
Right,
messages
right.
of just, yeah, I see you.
Right.
Wow, I see you. Like, if you want to think what we're deprived of,
Yes, being seen.
being seen and recognized, that's it. No one wants to say, good girl, here's your gold star. Well, you know, maybe, good girl, here's $1 million. But like, what people just really want is, yeah, that's it. That's the way. You've got it now. Yeah, just being seen. All right, so let's do this a little just seated meditation, because I want to give another conversation to this alignment up the back of the neck. And we're going to work with a one-to-one breath, just a Durga breath. We'll do it like climbing the stairs style. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, we've got good, 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 good. We've got good time for this. I'll just put on, if it still works, I won't fuss with the music, but if we get that mantra on, then we will. When the palms are up, what kind of an energetic experience are you more likely to get? Receiving or up level energy? And for the morning's practice, or I mean the initial practice, I had the palms down because we were down regulating a little bit. So if we're in more of a lifting depression kind of experience right now, then I'll say, would you please stack your hands right palm on top of left with the thumb tips touching in your lap. And I'll have the palms up so that we get a bit of an uptick to the nervous system. And then if the eyes can drift closed, that's fine. And if they're not ready to, just set your gaze on the floor out in front of you. And keep a soft gaze, almost like things could go a little blurry. You'd be okay with it. And bring your awareness to just the movement of your breath. If it's a very gentle movement or feels like no movement at all. And we'll take a deep breath in together. So as much as you can muster, just bring some air in the nose. And sigh out. Let's do it again. And this time when you breathe in, go ahead and allow the belly to swell a bit. And as you breathe out, relax the belly so that it can just release and fall back. We want that kind of an action. We don't want to use our muscles to squeeze the belly in. We just want
to allow the belly to swell and allow it to draw back. So one more time, inhale. And exhale. And now if you would stay with yourself and bring the air in for a 4 count. So count slowly or count quickly, whatever suits your breath, but come to a 4 count inhale and a 4 count exhale. Bring your shoulders back just a tiny little bit so that you feel a bit more weight in your sit bones. Let the sit bones anchor down the way you plug an outlet into the wall. The 2 prongs disappear into the wall. Let your sit bones plug down as if they're going to disappear into the cushion, the block, the blanket, the mat underneath you. And then we want to bring the electricity through the line. So the outlet stays plugged in, but the electricity begins to flow through the line. The sit bones stay heavy, but we're going to lift at the base of the pelvis. So right at the floor of your body, just a tiny little lift. Don't clench, don't squeeze, just lift. Start bringing the energy up the spine. Bring the electricity up the spine. And bring the side waist in slightly so that the side ribs can just lift up the tiniest bit. And then lift at the soft palate. So way at the back of the throat, just as if the soft palate was going to smile and the back of the throat is going to lift. And perhaps you feel like you brought in more energy than you feel like holding. That's okay, just relax it a little bit. And try not to let it all drain out, but just come easier and softer with it. So there's no tension in the jaw or in the shoulders. In for 4, out for 4. So we're going to make another adjustment just to see if we can be a clearer channel. And take your hands so that your thumbs are behind your ears and feel for the bony nub right at the base of the skull behind the ears. There's a soft divot underneath there. Go ahead and massage with your thumb. The soft divot. It's not really behind your head. It's kind of behind the head, behind the ear, the sides of the neck. Just massage that soft divot there. And then see if you can hook your thumbs there and pull up. It's like you want to pull up like you're going up the stairs. And so lift up as if you're coming up the stairs and you're lifting your skull up the stairs. And then once you come up, then you're going to slide the head back onto the thumbs. And you could feel literally the bones sliding and the skin dragging on the thumb. It's as if the thumbs have become the stair and the skull is pulling back just so slightly to sit on that step. The chin comes back and in just a little bit when you make that adjustment. If you hold there with your hands and keep lifting, let the skull rest on the thumbs, the lymph will drain, the blood will flow, will increase. You could get some clarity to your mind. So see what you feel on the inside of that. And then we're going to hold that right there and release the hands back to the lap. Inhale 4 and exhale 4. You might find that you're able to inhale 5 and exhale 5 just by virtue of these little adjustments we've made. Or perhaps you've just slowed your count down to accommodate 4 and 4. That's fine too. Let's plug the sit bones in, like the outlet in the wall. Lift at the base of the body, start bringing the electric energy up the spine, mid waist, side ribs lift, soft palate lifts. You bring the energy all the way up to the crown of the head. Relax the shoulders. You can shrug them a couple times. Just relax. The jaw starts to tighten. Then you know it's a little bit too much. See if you can stretch the breath one more time, maybe all the way to 6 in, 6 out. Just simply slow your count. Pelvic floor lift. Navel center lift, side ribs lift. Soft palate, back of the neck, up the steps and backwards with the skull. Slow down, take a deep breath in. Out. And it's prayer at your heart. From knuckles to the third eye. And namaste, but not quite done yet. Blink your eyes open. Look around and see if the experience of that meditation brought you a different sensation than your morning practice. Is there a little bit more alertness compared to initial practice? I should say initial, not morning. Any thoughts on that?
I can picture inside, like, from the pelvic muscle to going up to the spine. Because of the information in the seat. So I feel like every time each breast movement going upward, connecting to the kidney, to the liver.
You feel it looping through your whole body. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, Emmy has certain experiences of a certain depth because she has this kind of a practice. And so what that lets her do is it gives her some material for creating visualizations for her students. You're not going to have a student say that to you, what she just said to us. That's because she has this practice that she's been working with for so many years, and she has a certain way of describing it. And that's true for like a lot of us who practice, right? We have certain experiences, and maybe our students aren't going to have that depth of experience where they can see the energy. It may, you know, may never happen for them, but that's okay because we're still giving them a metaphor from which to work from that's still lifting them up and is still creating like an uptick to the nervous system. So if you got a general feeling that this was more upregulating, even though it was a meditation, then that would be kind of my objective around it. Versus we really intentionally at the first practice had a down-regulating one. So even if your eyes feel a little bit brighter from having stretched up through the back of your neck, and you feel like, oh, okay, my mind is just a little bit, you know, yeah, like I was ready to fall asleep. I'm sitting here for a couple hours, and now I'm just like, okay, I can like look around and get up. Then that would be hashtag goals. The other thing that I didn't mention that I wanted to check in with, we talked about the front of the hip being the lymphatic area, and we talked about the posture of anxiety. What I find with a lot of people is this iliacus, like the deep inner hip pocket muscle. So along with your psoas, that deep iliacus front hip muscle. So when we're meditating, if you tend to be tight or tend to be anxious ridden, the energy tends to be a little more upregulated, hyperregulated, then it can be this leaning forward. If I do it, because I pretty much
You know, this always leaning forward, always like in this posture of like a little bit ahead of myself, where the front hip is tight. So I'll often cue when I'm down regulating people at the beginning of class to bring the shoulders back a little bit and to sit and to plug the sit bones. And then you could even say relax the front of the hips. So that's another one that I didn't mention before that goes in this category. Are we good? What other thoughts do you have around it? Anything in conclusion?
The kind of similar to Emmy's experience, but the morning practice, a lot of like kind of orange colors were, you know, through my mind and stuff like that. Not red, but definitely warm, but not heating, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
And I feel like one of the things that brought me back to it again, wonder if it's, you know, neurology from 35 years ago, right? But one of my favorite things when we were growing up, we used to go to the beach all the time. And I think almost every single time we went, my favorite thing was to take a nap underneath my beach towel. Mom would like put the beach towel over my head. And so I could hear all the sounds of people playing and kids, you know, having fun and water splashing and, you know, mom next to me. And just this kind of like orange glow through the towel. And I feel like that was very much what it was. So it wasn't like, it wasn't upregulated by any stretch, but just felt like I was ready to take a nap, and that kind of warmth, you know, guidance kind of came through.
Cool.
Where at the end of this with that that breath, and obviously, you know, my posture, it's difficult for me to like stay without the, you know, kind of pain of the spine and stuff like that. So this was a very different level of calm at the end, even with some discomfort in the spine. It's you know, just get in the game, just knock it off, right? And you know, and it's like, but it was just a very different way to kind of end peaceful and not
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah.
Where at the other one, if you were like, we're gonna take a nap and we'll come back, it would have been like awesome, open the blinds and some sun through.
Right.
You know, it was just a fun difference of,
Fun comparison.
yeah.
Yeah, and I love his visual. Who could really relate to the beach, the nap at the beach and the beach towel, right? Like those kinds of cues really put in our visceral memory. Because when Corey is talking about that, then my whole body is shifting. That's the visceral system, right? It's going to shift and it's going to feel that. And when I start feeling that, the blood chemistry is going to start shifting. It's like your mind doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. And so if you visualize yourself at the beach next to your mom under a beach towel, I mean, that was the best part of it. It's like next to my mom, right? You can hear all the sounds of I'm next to my mom, like all of that comfort and relaxation, like that creates a real visceral feeling, and it can calm someone who's depressed, or I mean, someone who's anxious. It can comfort someone who's depressed just to have that kind of visualization
It's
described.
almost like eye rest meditation, going back to the secure place,
Yes.
which is mom provides,
Yeah.
you know, that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I rest, yoga nidra, like all those visualizations
Yeah.
are really great tools for this.
Mm.
Yeah. So I hope I gave you some launching pads and some new tools.
And one other thing like
Yeah.
when we do this rest touching
Yeah.
and the breath, it's like we are almost leading our breath to the back of the brain. And that's very important because if you send the breath to here, it's more like a tunnel, create a tunnel vision. But if you send the air to the back of the brain, it provides more like a whole bird eye vision.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
this,
It broadens the vision. It
Yeah.
stimulates your pineal and pituitary glands that are actually back there. The thumbs behind the neck also start to massage and liberate the fascia, the back body line, because that's an attachment point there. And then all of that is intended to rectify this tech neck thing that we all do, but also the, you know, the depression and the anxiety postures.
How much you and I practice and teach. I'm not unfamiliar with subtle movement of energy, but
Yeah.
blood, you know,
Right.
oxygen in the body, out of the pose, right? But that was wild. That felt like somebody was just pouring, like water down your back. That was a really interesting, profound release and flow. That was really cool.
Yeah, that's been life changing.
Yeah, I was like really excited about that. To add that. My early morning Saturday yin students are all there for like, I could ask them to jump off a bridge and they'd be, all for it, right?
Yeah.
They love the embodied experience.
Yeah.
And they've worked really hard to connect into that embodied practice. And so these are really, it's the best part of this kind of
100%.
collegiate environment. So thank you.
Yeah. Corey, take your block, lie on your back, angle the block so that you can use the ridge of the block to
That's
massage
sensation.
along that rim at the base of the skull. So you're just going to bring the block up on the tip edge. Yeah. And then roll across. I would flat my feet so that there's a little less. You'll feel when you're working that ridge there in the back body fascia, you'll feel when you've got that pop up reflex of, like you'll feel the body like not wanting to drop below back. And in that case, just bend your knees. Now lengthen your legs and see like if there's enough release there for the back to be happy with that tug. And you feel kind of how it's a little bit of a different story. So I'm not saying one way or another about his experience. I'm just saying, so Emmy, you have to be on the corner of the block. So turn the block, yes. Yeah, the block is like, it's not flat on the floor. It's perched up at its angle. Haley, would you move your silver cup? Because then people are going to be able to see when you get back there. So that's another like little hack for finding that. Yeah. And then Kaylee's going to move her right hand. Sorry, left hand. All right. So if you can see that she's on her the corner of the block. You got a nice release all the way through the back. Yeah. Straighten your legs and see what that feels like. Right?
That's like almost impossible to stay hold up.
Yes. Okay, now remove your block. These were all things I was going to do in this last practice and kind of ran out of time. Take the block between your hands. Good. Good. You did it exactly the way I intended. That's the way. And then bring the hands up overhead. Lay the block on the floor behind you, but don't move your hands. So hold the block and then just set it on the floor behind you, but keep your hands there. Point and flex your toes. So that would be one way of working with opening up the front body using the block if we're going to continue. I would also have you then do a supported fish pose with the block behind your shoulder blades. I'd probably have you do that with Supta Baddha legs because it's a nice way to open up the inner groin while you're opening up the chest. You could also do child's pose with blocks under the forearms, the 2 forearms. And now Kaylee's got that hip flexor thing. She can pontoon pose. So like a bridge with the legs straight with the blocks on its lowest level. So Corey's got the fish and he's opening up the upper body. Miranda back there has the fish with bound angle legs. And Kaylee up here in the front has the block under her sacrum. The pontoon. And that'll get the iliacus in the front of the hip. And so these would be all that depression posture. Anxiety too, but you don't want to start here with anxiety, folks, because the upward facing isn't going to downregulate that. So some of the shapes are going to be helpful and you can do that maybe later in the practice. But the upward facing is going to be more upregulated and the downward facing more down. Good? Okay. Twists are good for anybody. You guys are the best. I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks for watching. Namaste.